Is it possible for a homecoming to shake an international airport to the point of nearly losing control? Or was there something far deeper, more emotional, and more unexpected behind the tears that broke out that night when Jungkook finally returned home after the global promotion of the Arirang album? That question did not arise without reason. On Friday night, March 27, 2026, the atmosphere at Incheon International Airport, usually orderly and driven by a professional rhythm, suddenly transformed into a space overflowing with nearly uncontrollable emotion.
The crowd of ARMY who had been waiting for hours seemed to be anticipating not just the arrival of their idol, but a moment they had long held on to through hope, longing, and even unspoken chinta that had never fully found words. When the arrival gates finally opened and BTS appeared complete as Otsat, something immediately felt different.
This was not merely an artist's return after an international schedule. This was a symbol. This was an event. And for many, it was the answer to a long wait since each member had completed their mandatory military service. Yet amid all the flashing cameras and echoing cheers, public attention quickly focused on one figure, Jungkook. Not only because of his global popularity, but because the expression he showed that night felt different. He appeared wearing a dark blue jacket, a blue cap, a black mask, and a simple backpack. A look far from glamorous, yet one that reinforced the sense of humanity that has always been part of his appeal. In a video first uploaded by the account at Rapperjg on Platform X, Jungkook can be clearly seen walking slowly under tight security. But what left many people silent was not his steps, it was the gesture he made moments later. He paused briefly, bowed at a full 90 degrees, a gesture of deep respect in Korean culture, then waved to the fans. The moment may have lasted only a few seconds, but its impact, far beyond the video's duration. Tears began to be heard, not just from one or two people, but from many ARMY present at the scene. Some were even seen covering their faces, as if unable to contain the surge of emotions that had long been held back. Was this simply a spontaneous reaction to seeing their idol in person? Or was there something more complex? A collective emotional release after a long journey filled with uncertainty. The video quickly went viral. Within hours, views surged into the tens of thousands, accompanied by thousands of likes and reposts. But what was more interesting were not the numbers, it was the comments beneath it. Many described the moment as too touching to explain, while others began questioning Jungkook's condition himself. Was he really okay? That question may sound exaggerated to some, but upon closer look, there was a hint of exhaustion that could not be entirely hidden, even by a seasoned performer like Jungkook. The long journey from the United States, the demanding promotional schedule, and the pressure of being part of a global group like BTS are no small burdens. And although he continued to smile and remain warm, there was a thin line between professionalism and fatigue that had begun to show. After their major comeback concert in Seoul on March 21, 2026, BTS immediately continued promotions in the United States, including an appearance on the popular show The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon in New York. The performance received tremendous praise and further solidified their position in the international music scene. But behind that success, there was a price to be paid, both physically and emotionally. Their return to South Korea was supposed to be a moment of celebration, and indeed, for many ARMY, that night marked the peak of happiness. Seeing all members back together, walking side by side toward the waiting vehicles, brought a sense of relief that was hard to describe. No more gaps. No more temporary separations.
BTS was whole again. And yet, that is where the paradox lies. Because amid that happiness, an equally strong sense of chinta emerged.
Would they get enough rest? Would the pressure to remain perfect become too heavy a burden? And most importantly, did they still have space to be ordinary human beings under such immense expectations? Jungkook in many ways became the embodiment of these questions. He is known as someone who always gives his best, who never does anything halfway. But precisely because of that, many have begun to wonder, how long can that last? On the other hand, airport management and organization also came under scrutiny. Although the ARMY crowd appeared orderly and remained behind barriers, the sheer scale of their presence raised questions about safety and the capacity of public spaces to handle phenomena of this magnitude. Was an international airport like ICN truly prepared to face both the emotional and physical wave of a global fandom like ARMY? But perhaps, in the end, all these questions return to one fundamental truth: the relationship between BTS and their fans. That night, that relationship felt incredibly real. Not just in cheers or cameras capturing every second, but in tears, in glances, and in simple gestures like a 90-degree bow. It was a language that needed no translation, a form of communication beyond words. And perhaps that is where the real surprise lies. That in an entertainment industry often perceived as cold and calculated, there are still moments so sincere, so raw, and so human that they make thousands of people pause, not to take photos but to feel. Jungkook and BTS's return to ICN was not merely the end of a promotional journey. It was the beginning of a new chapter. A phase where they return as one, carrying experiences, wounds, joy, and hope gathered along the way. And for ARMY, that night will always be remembered, not just as a moment of meeting their idols, but as a night when emotions could no longer be hidden, when tears became a universal language, and when an international airport transformed into a space filled with stories that will live on in memory. But now, the question shifts: if this homecoming alone was enough to shake emotions so profoundly, what will happen next? Is this merely the beginning of something far greater, or a sign that behind all the grandeur and success, there is another story yet to be fully revealed? Time will answer. But one thing is certain: that night at ICN was not just a return, it was an event. And like all great events, it left a mark, not only on camera, but in the hearts of those who witnessed it. That trace did not end when the automatic doors of Incheon International Airport closed again and the BTS entourage disappeared behind security. In fact, once the physical moment ended, its emotional wave expanded even further in the digital space. Video clips, screenshots, and comments circulating on X turned into a kind of collective archive, a spontaneous documentation that captured not only what happened, but also how people felt about it. Some users highlighted small details that might have otherwise gone unnoticed. The way Jungkook slightly lowered his head before fully bowing, the brief pause before he waved, even the slower rhythm of his steps compared to usual. Was it simply the effect of physical fatigue after a long journey? Or was it a reflection of something deeper? An emotional weight that never fully reveals itself on grand stages. At the same time, a more critical narrative began to surface. A small number of voices questioned whether such overwhelming euphoria, even if orderly, is entirely appropriate in a public space like an airport. Has the fine line between support and pressure begun to blur? This question did not necessarily diminish ARMY's love, but instead opened a broader discussion about boundaries, privacy, and balance in the relationship between idols and their fans. Yet amid these debates, one thing remained constant: the intensity of emotion that could not simply be reduced to something viral. Because for many ARMY, that moment was not just about seeing Jungkook or BTS in person, it was about validation. A confirmation that the long journey they had followed, from hiatus to the global promotion of Arirang, had truly culminated in a real, tangible homecoming. And perhaps that is where its true power lies. Not in the size of the crowd, nor in the number of views, but in the ability of a brief moment to unite thousands of personal stories into one shared experience. Something deeply human and ultimately unforgettable. That experience slowly turned into a kind of echo that kept repeating, even after the night at Incheon International Airport had passed. Each time the arrival video of Jungkook was replayed on X, the same emotion seemed to resurface, as if time wasn't truly moving forward, but instead circling back to that exact moment. Some ARMY admitted they only fully realized the magnitude of that moment after they returned home, when the atmosphere grew quiet and their minds began to process what had really happened. There was relief, there was emotion, but there was also a small, unexplainable emptiness, a feeling that emerges when a long-awaited moment has finally been fulfilled.